Good morning and Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank His Excellency Dr. Rashid Aleem for this opportunity. This is my third time attending the V Week. I missed last year, but it's really great to be back here. So what I'm going to talk through is we'll give you a brief introduction of Diamond Energy. Most of you have probably heard of us. We've been attending the V Weeks for the last 3 years. So we started off in Singapore as a smart energy and smart grid solutions provider. And over time, we developed our own software and hardware. And we've been active in Singapore as a demand response aggregator. And more recently, we're also an independent electricity retailer. So we also sell electricity to consumers. In terms of our international presence, we've completed a project in Vietnam that was designing and piloting a demand response program for the Electricity Regulatory Authority of Vietnam. And we've recently done something similar for SIVA. And that's a project that was completed last year. So I'll give you some highlights of that going forward. So let's come to demand-side management. Can I have a show of hands for people who've actually heard of demand-side management and have an idea of what it is? Okay, hopefully that will increase as my presentation ends. What you see on the screen is more of a formal definition. I'll give you an example that most people can relate to. My parents live in Karachi. That's where I'm coming from 2 days ago. And we have an apartment that was designed maybe 40 years ago. And we have 4 air conditioning units over different rooms. Now, if I turn them all on at the same time, can you guess what would happen? The breaker's going to trip, exactly. Because the system that was designed 40 years ago, it wasn't meant to handle so much demand. So what we have to do on a manual basis that when we are turning on the air conditioning, we need to check that there's nothing else on. Similarly, if we want to turn on the microwave when the air conditioning is on, we need to check that, okay, not more than 2 air conditioners are running. Otherwise, the breaker is going to trip again. That is actually demand-side management at a basic home level. Now imagine you scale that up to the utility level, because the utility doesn't really have control over consumer demand. But with the aid of technology, when we hand over that control to the utility, they get a lot more flexibility in how to manage the power grid. So I'll give you a few different aspects of demand-side management. So we have demand response, energy efficiency, and renewable energy. You might ask, what is renewable energy? How is it related to demand-side management? Because I think in a previous speaker also mentioned that with renewable energy, you're going to have consumers that can be called prosumers, that are also producing as well as consuming. So from the utility perspective, when you have generation at the consumer side, that actually impacts the demand. They see it as less demand. So I'll focus more on demand response for this presentation. We have dispatchable and non-dispatchable. So dispatchable, the design objective would be reliability, economics, and for non-dispatchable, it's like time-sensitive pricing. So for reliability, we might have different schemes in which we want to participate. It's for extra capacity, for extra reserves, for regulation, in terms of how the electricity power grid would work. And the economics would be driven by the energy price. This diagram actually shows you the different stakeholders for demand-side management. We have the power generation side, we have the grid operator, and in cases where there's an electricity market, there would be a market. Then the lower half is actually consumers. So I've separated them into C&I consumers, commercial and industrial, and residential consumers. In terms of the technology required to actually enable demand-side management, we have these 4 segments. So monitoring, where the sensors and instrumentation come into place, how the devices will communicate with each other. In terms of control, what are the actuators? Do you have direct load control of the devices? And of course, to put them all together, it's the coordination, the demand response management system, and how do you integrate with the utility systems and the dispatch logic that's already present. So the last part, I would say, is the most important, because you might have the best technology in the world, but if nobody knows about it and they don't know how to use it, it's not going to be useful at all. So for customer, how does the utility engage the customers? What kind of awareness programs are there? What incentives are being offered to actually participate in demand-side management?